Golovich. I'm medical director at the Osher Center for Integrative Health here at University of Cincinnati. And this virtual wellness and lifestyle series happens a couple of times a year with the goal to provide a vehicle for interaction of the community with our expert Osher Center faculty on all topics, wellness and self-care. The Osher Center's mission is to improve the health within our community by transforming the current focus on disease care into the well care, and by using the innovative approaches in research, in education, in clinical care, and as well as the community engagement in all topics, wellness and integrative health. So it's my great pleasure tonight to introduce dear colleague and friend, Dr. Barbara Walker. She currently serves as an integrative health performance psychologist within the psychiatry department and behavioral neurosciences within the College of Medicine here at University of Cincinnati. And she's also board certified by the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine. So in her clinical work, she sees a variety of patients with a variety of conditions and trying to really facilitate their optimal effectiveness in following healthy lifestyle. Besides her clinical efforts, she's very busy in the educational side. Yeah, so she's teaching sports and positive psychology within the Department of Psychology, and co-teaches the course on the science and practice of mind-body medicine. Very pertinent for tonight's presentation is her involvement in creation of a new course on nature-based therapies and eco-psychology. And she's clinical director of a new program that Osher Center is developing with Cincinnati Parks Foundation. So Parks for Wellness is the name of the program. Yeah. She's very much involved into presenting in scientific professional conferences locally, nationally. She has authored numerous chapters in professional texts, as well as she's contributed to periodicals that you can read every day on certain topics of wellness and lifestyle. She's currently serving on the board of directors of the Cincinnati Flying Pig Marathon, and that kind of leads into this her lifelong passion for peak performance principles that she implements in her professional life and her personal life. And she is past very competitive athlete in marathon, in triathlon, duathlon, cycling. So currently, she is just focusing on living a healthy lifestyle by, cycling, hiking, doing organic gardening, practicing yoga, being with family and friends, and needless to say, whenever possible, outdoors in the nature. So as we move to hear Dr. Walker, I just want to remind you to please place your questions into this chat feature, and then we will address those questions in the Q&A period. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Walker. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. G, for such a kind introduction. Let me go ahead and get my PowerPoint up. Go up on the top. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Let's see. Just to verify, Dr. G, are you seeing my slides okay?
Yes, we can see them very well, Barbara.
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for attending, and welcome to the official first day of spring for 2024 here. I can't think of anywhere else that I'd really rather be but talking to you about nature. So before we get started, I would just like us to take a few mindful collective breaths together just to let go of wherever you've come from today and wherever you're heading after this hour, and just allow yourself to be present. So let's go ahead and take a breath. Just follow your breath all the way in and all the way out, just for a couple of moments. And while you're doing that, you can close your eyes if you'd like, but I'd also like us to acknowledge that the Cincinnati area and the land that the University of Cincinnati has been built on is the native homeland of the indigenous Algonquian speaking tribes, including the Delaware, Miami, and Shawnee, and really send our sincere gratitude for sharing this space on this earth. So we all know how amazing being in nature can make us feel. The sounds of the birds singing, the breeze rustling in the leaves of the trees, which was certainly happening today, the varying fragrances, the sunlight filtering through the branches, and breathing fresh air. It all gives us a sense of comfort. It eases our stress and worry and helps us relax and think more clearly. So being in nature restores our mood. It gives us back our energy and vitality, refreshes and rejuvenates us. So what's the secret power of nature that really makes us so much happier and healthier? And why is it that we feel less stressed and have more energy just by walking in the forest? So the belief in the benefits of spending time in nature has really stretches back thousands of years. But it's only been in the last few decades that scientists and researchers have begun to understand the complex relationships between our natural environment and our health, providing additional support for the need to protect nature and our planet. So there have been many writers that have spoken about nature, and I'm just going to name a few here. So Hippocrates, which was quite a while ago, said nature itself is the best physician. And on the parts of animals, Aristotle said, for in all natural things, there is something marvelous. The transcendentalist writer, Ralph Waldo Emerson, in his essay, Nature, says that the lover of nature is he whose inward and outward senses are still truly adjusted to each other. He who has retained the spirit of infancy, even into the era of manhood. And then Henry David Thoreau, in his essay Walking, published in 1861, said, in wilderness is the preservation of the world. And then we have the great naturalist John Muir wrote in his journals, nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you in the storms of their energy, while cares will drop off like autumn leaves. And then we have Rachel Carson, who was a biologist and environmental writer who wrote in Silent Spring, published in 1962, which launched the environmental movement. There's nothing infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature, the assurance that dawn comes after night and spring after winter. So before we discuss specific scientific benefits of the value of being in nature, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mental and physical health crisis we are having, not only in our country, but in multiple areas around the world. So today, 450 million people worldwide are affected by mental health issues, costing the global economy $2.5 trillion, to the extent that they are considered one of the fundamental public health challenges we face this century. So this data is from 2019. So my assumption is that since the pandemic, these numbers are even greater. So the World Health Organization calls stress the health epidemic of the 21st century. And finding ways to manage stress, not just for our own health, but for the health of our communities at home and in the workplace, is the most significant health challenge of the future. So the more stress we have, the sicker we get. We have more heart attacks, we have more strokes and cancer, and we have more mental illness, more addictions, more loneliness, depression, and anxiety. And of course, the more stress we have, the more expensive our healthcare becomes. So this is a graph looking at the deaths from cardiovascular disease in 2019, which is considered the leading cause of death globally, including the US. So Russia and China are in maroon, and while the US is not as high, it appears that we have well over 500,000 deaths per year from this disease. The American Heart Association estimates up to 90% of cardiovascular diseases may be preventable with education and action. And these deaths are from cancer. So as you can see, China is higher, but looks like there is a commonality between Russia and the US trailing closely behind. And then sadly, since 2019, the life expectancy of Americans has fallen to the lowest level in nearly 2 decades. I promise we're going to get to some good news. So we humans are currently considered an indoor species. According to the US EPA, the average American now spends 93% of their time indoors, of which 6% is spent in cars. That makes only 1/2 of one day spent outdoors each week. And then Europeans fare no better, spending around 90% of their time indoors. And then you ask yourself, what are you doing indoors? What are we doing right now, right? We're looking at screens. So recent studies have found that people in the US spend as much as 10 hours and 39 minutes a day consuming media. And so, which is much more time than the average person spends asleep. So the more time we spend with technology, the more likely we are to suffer because of it. So in 1984, the word technostress was coined to describe unhealthy behaviors around new technology. That was 1984. It can arise from everyday use, like checking your phone constantly, compulsively, sharing updates, and feeling that you need to be continually connected. So symptoms run from anxiety, depression, mental fatigue, eye and neck strain, to insomnia, frustration, irritability, and loss of temper. There's something called computer vision syndrome, which is a condition that arises from staring at screens for prolonged hours. And naturally, such exposures take a toll on our eyesight and develop problems like dry eyes, myopia, and chronic headaches. So spending time outdoors, especially in green spaces, is the best natural solution to this. Looking at the green grass, the trees, the flowers, and all the other aspects of the environment improve focus and eyesight. So interestingly, studies have shown that children who spend more time, more than 4 hours a day in the outdoors, are 4 times less likely to develop eyesight problems than children who spent less than 1 hour outdoors every day. So we must work to create healthier environments, which is foundational to changing the country's culture of well-being, both mentally and physically. So we know that, again, time spent in green spaces and in nature is associated with a number of health benefits, mentally and physically. And the benefits don't only come from intentionally taking the time to be in nature. So benefits can be seen only after a few minutes of time spent in green spaces, such as city parks, in your yard, or even looking at beautiful pictures of nature. So in recent decades, really an enormous amount, an impressive amount of studies have been undertaken to both increase and our understanding and provide scientific validation of the various ways in which spending time in nature contributes to our well-being. So I want to talk about a few modern scholars, and I am just talking about a few of them. There are a lot of people that I could have added in here, but I just wanted to give you a sample. So there's Erich Fromm, who was a German social psychologist, and he used the term biophilia in his book, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness, published in 1973, and described it as the passionate love of life and all that is alive. And then we have E.O. Wilson. He was a biologist and he wrote over 20 books. He won 2 Pulitzer Prizes and discovered hundreds of new species. In fact, he's considered to be one of the world's greatest scientists, often called the father of biodiversity. So after Fromm, in his work called Biophilia, which he published in 1984, the same time as technostress was discovered or coined, he proposed that the tendency of humans to focus on and to affiliate with nature and other life forms has in part a genetic basis. So he believed that because we evolved in nature, we have a biological need to connect with it. We love nature because we learned to love the things that helped us to survive. We feel comfortable in nature because that is where we have lived for most of our life on Earth. We are genetically determined to love the natural world. It's in our DNA. And then we have, in the 90s, Stephen and Rachel Kaplan at the University of Michigan. They developed a theoretical explanation for the relationship between the loss of concentration and stress, and they called their theory attention restoration. They postulated that prolonged use of directed attention as demanded by most occupations and academic study cause us to experience mental fatigue and associated irritability and stress. So spending even a brief period of time in the natural world promotes this sense of involuntary fascination that allows the brain's directed attention to rest and then allows it to recover from the rigors of problem solving. So the result, according to the Kaplans, is a more relaxed state and increased ability to attend to our work. And then we have Roger Ulrich, who is a professor in architecture and design. And in 1991, he wrote about his stress reduction theory or psychoevolutionary theory, which states that looking at scenery containing natural elements like greenery or water creates positive emotions and feelings like interest, calm, pleasure, and has a restorative effect, easing our state of alertness following a stressful situation. So his work has been pivotal in healthcare settings, in particular in construction and architecture. And then we have Richard Louv. And Richard is an American journalist and author of multiple books about the connections between family, nature, and community. And he coined the term nature deficit disorder. So while that's not an official diagnosis, nature deficit disorder is the idea that human beings, especially children, are spending less time outside than they have in the past, and the belief that this change results in a wide range of behavioral problems, including anxiety, depression, the potential for poor academic performance, and increased stress. So in his book, one of his books, Last Child in the Woods is what it's called, he stated, time in nature is not leisure time. It is an essential investment in our health. And then we have Dr. King Lee, and he's a medical doctor at Tokyo's Nippon Medical School. And he's considered the world's foremost expert in forest medicine. And he has written many books and has many articles, and I'm going to reference some of his material in a little bit. So there are currently several different hypotheses proposed to describe how nature might influence different aspects of our human health. There are many elements within our environment that can affect us positively or negatively and impact us whether we are conscious of them or not. So I'll not be able to cover all the science within the short period of time that we're together, but we'll provide you with a sampling of information so as to why nature is medicine and how to incorporate it more into our lives for improved mental and physical well-being. So there's growing evidence that trees provide major public health benefits. So according to the World Health Organization, by 2050, 75% of the world's projected 9 billion population will live in cities. So currently more than half of us live in the city, so urban green spaces are more important than ever for our mental and physical health and well-being. So when we say more trees, more happiness, what we mean by that is one extensive study conducted by the University of Exeter in the UK found that people who live where there are trees and green spaces are less anxious and depressed. Another study looked at the density of trees and the number of prescriptions used for antidepressants in London, and they found that residents with the most trees took out fewer prescriptions for stress-related disorders than those who lived in areas with few or no trees. And then we have the work of Frances Kyo and her colleagues at the University of Chicago, and they have been doing extensive research in this area, especially amongst trees and green spaces. And some of their findings have shown that within the poorer neighborhoods of Chicago, people who live near green spaces, lawns, parks, and trees show reductions in ADHD symptoms and greater calm, as well as a stronger sense of connection to neighbors, more civility, and less violence in their neighborhoods. And then a later analysis confirmed that green spaces tend to have less crime. So they found that a higher number of trees lowered residents' mental fatigue and stress, factors that contribute to violence. It's also been found that individuals' aggression was lower if they lived in buildings surrounded by trees than if they did not. And these people perform better on cognitive tests as well. So one of the biggest natural experiments on the relationship between trees and human health was carried out as a result of the emerald ash borer disease in the US. And for those of you who've been around Cincinnati for a long time, you're very familiar. So the emerald ash borer is a small green beetle and is thought to have come over from China to the US in wooden packing cases, Emerald ash borer disease was first noticed in 2002 in trees in the American Midwest and spread rapidly when trees infested with the beetle were cut down, mainly for firewood and then transported across the country. So there are 7 billion ash trees in America, and emerald ash borer disease could potentially kill all of them. So the most obvious effect of the disease was to turn a once leafy neighborhood into a treeless area. So the U.S. Forest Service found that in the places where trees had been affected by the disease, mortality rates were higher, specifically the rates of death from cardiovascular and respiratory tract disease, which are two of the most common causes of death in America. So one study looking at the relationship between the emerald ash borer disease and mortality rates in 15 counties between 1990 and 2007 equated the death of trees from a disease with over 15,000 deaths from heart disease and over 6,000 from diseases of the lower respiratory system. It has also found that the greater the infestation, the greater its effect on human health. So while we need, obviously for natural sunlight, we need to protect ourselves from too much sun. Sunlight has a significant impact on our bodies, influencing everything from hormone production to sleep cycles. So in particular, it affects our biological clock, which is responsible for regulating our circadian rhythms. So morning light is critical in setting and maintaining these rhythms. So sleep disorders in particular are a major public health concern. So about 50 to 70 million Americans have sleep disorders, and 1 in 3 adults, which is about 84 million people, do not regularly get the recommended amount of uninterrupted sleep they need to protect their health. So while there are a huge variety of reasons for people not sleeping well, by getting 15 to 30 minutes of sunlight in the morning with consistency, we can set ourselves up for a better night's sleep. So in addition, ensuring that you get natural light while you are indoors affects a number of health conditions like mood, sleep, vitamin D levels, and eye health, and has been shown to heighten productivity levels. So these authors in particular, looking at the effect of light on human circadian rhythms, sleep and mood, found that the greater time spent in outdoor light during the day was associated with fewer depressive symptoms, lower odds of using antidepressant medication, and lower odds of lifetime recurrent major depressive disorder, greater ease of getting up in the morning, less tiredness, better sleep, and earlier chronotype. So sounds within our environment are a source of constant stimulation and serve as potential risks to our mental and physical health. So I want to do a little real short experiential exercise with you. So go ahead and turn up the volume if you can reach that on your device that you're on just for a moment. And I want you to close your eyes for 30 seconds and just take a listen. So after listening to that, how do you feel? You know, how did this sound affect your mood, maybe your stress level? Depends on probably how loud you had it. You know, what memories did these sounds evoke? And you can put this in the chat and we can talk about it later, but just you can add anything you want in there. Some people love that. Some people find it really stressful. So I want you to close your eyes one more time. We're going to take 30 more seconds and I want you to listen to this. You may need your volume up loud for this. Excellent. So after listening to that, notice if you feel any differently from when you heard the city sounds. How does this sound affect your mood, your stress level? See if this evoked any particular memories. There happens to be some morning birds that I recorded at my house last July. It's like 20 minutes of it worth. We just heard 30 seconds. But, think about whether there are any notable differences. Again, you can put that in the chat if you care to. So what I want to talk about, sorry, for the sounds itself, is numerous studies have revealed that living in cities are associated with increased risks of mental health issues in comparison to rural areas. So, including an almost 40% greater risk of depression, double the risk of schizophrenia, and a greater risk of anxiety, stress, and depression and isolation. So, why is this? So, one reason is that we are rarely in a state of physical and psychological rest in cities. So, on the contrary, we're usually in constant motion and continually stimulated by lots of different information and signals. Think about the sound, the crowds, the traffic, the smells, the lights, etc. So, when this is combined with pollution, commuting, potential crime, etc., the stress factors are manifold, leading to a growing number of chronic stress conditions with a considerable impact on our health and well-being. So, natural silence itself has been called one of the most endangered resources on the planet. Silence in nature does not mean total quiet. When you are free from human noise, you really have an opportunity to listen to the sounds that only nature provides. So, the silence of the natural world is in fact a constant, wondrous, never-ending symphony. So this particular study showed that listening to bird songs, regardless of diversity, improves anxiety, while traffic noise, also regardless of diversity, is related to higher depressiveness. So medium-sized effects on birdsong soundscapes were demonstrated, reducing paranoia. So the next area I want to talk about within our environment are phytoncides. And so phytoncides are the forest's natural aromatherapy. So they are the natural oils within a plant and are part of a tree's natural defense system. So trees release phytoncides to protect them from bacteria, from insects and fungi, and are also part of the communication pathway between trees. This is one of the ways trees communicate with each other. So the concentration of the phytoncides in the air depends on the temperature and other changes that take place throughout the year. So the warmer it is, the more phytoncides are in the air. So they vary from tree species to tree species and have very specific scents. So evergreens like pine trees, cedars, spruces, and conifers are the largest producers of phytoncides. So through Dr. Lee's work, who I mentioned earlier from Tokyo, his research in particular looked at exposure to phytoncides, and here's what he found. So significantly increased numbers of natural killer cells and natural killer activity, as well as enhancing the activity of anti-cancer proteins, significantly decreased the levels of stress hormones, increased the hours of sleep. He showed that decreased the scores for tension, anxiety, anger, hostility, fatigue, and confusion, showing that other researchers have shown that phytoncides can stimulate a pleasant mood, significantly lowering blood pressure and heart rate, increasing heart rate variability, suppressing sympathetic nervous system, and increasing parasympathetic nervous system, bringing one's nervous system into balance and making one feel comfortable and relaxed. So the next area I want to talk about is the effect of negative ions. So the air is naturally ionized, balancing positive and negative ions in natural elements. So negative ions are molecules floating in the air or atmosphere that have been charged with electricity. So negative ions exist in nature in multiple places, including ultraviolet rays from the sun, discharges of electricity in the air after a thunderclap or a lightning strike, wherever water collides with itself, like a waterfall or the ocean shore, which is called the Leonard effect. Wherever it's produced as part of the natural growth process for many plants. So many researchers of negative ionization have posited that being exposed to negative ions can have positive effects for our health. So part of this is due to the chemical reactions that ions have with our bodily tissues and DNA. So one study in particular, for this particular paper, researchers looked at 100 years of studies and found evidence that negative ions could help regulate patterns of sleep, reduce stress, boost immune system function, increase metabolism of fats and carbs, and kill or inhibit the growth of harmful bacteria, viruses, and mold species. So another area I want to talk about is the exposure to and the importance of microbes. So there is a substance in soil that we breathe in when we walk in the forest or we dig in our garden, which makes us feel happier. This is a common and harmless bacteria called Mycobacterium vaccae. So this was originally discovered by accident, as most things seem to be, but now the science shows that the soil stimulates the immune system and have demonstrated that this bacteria increases serotonin in the prefrontal cortex, which modulates anxiety. So there is a professor in the Department of Integrative Physiology at Colorado University at Boulder. His name is Christopher Lowry, and he is at the forefront of this area. And if you're interested in this, you should look at his work. It's pretty phenomenal. So the next area I want to talk about that's right outside our doors is grounding or earthing. So spending the majority of our time indoors, and when we're outside walking in shoes with plastic or rubber composite soles, keeps us really disconnected from the earth. So grounding or earthing refers to direct contact with the surface of the earth, such as with bare feet or hands, or with various grounding systems. So multidisciplinary research has revealed that electrically conductive contact of the human body with the surface of the earth produces effects on our physiology and our health. So such effects relate to inflammation, immune responses, wound healing, and prevention of treatment of chronic inflammatory or autoimmune diseases, reduction in pain, stress, improvements in blood flow, energy and sleep, and generates greater well-being. So these effects are profound, systemic, and foundational, and often really develop rapidly. So earthing is as simple as routinely walking barefoot outside, or you could use inexpensive grounding systems indoors while sleeping or sitting. But it practices that restore a lost and needed electric connection with the earth. So the research varies on how much time spent on grounding to receive the most benefits, but on average, it appears that a minimum of 20 minutes a day is the most beneficial. So this particular study, the results of this study show that grounding reduces pain and alters the numbers of circulating neutrophils and lymphocytes, and also affects various circulating chemical factors related to inflammation. So another area in our environment is a fractal. So the term fractal was first used by Benoit Mandelbrot in 1975 upon discovering that simple mathematic rules apply to a vast array of patterns in nature that looked otherwise visually complex or chaotic. So a fractal is a pattern that is repeated at different levels, and you can find fractal patterns throughout nature, such as plants, trees, clouds, rivers, snowflakes. Interestingly, fractals are also present in art, technology, architecture, and you can also find fractals really in our body and our vein structure, our nerve pathways, the bronchial tree of our lungs, and the structure of the neurons in our brain. So because they're so common in nature, it's suggested that our brains are actually pre-wired to positively respond to them. And viewing fractal patterns has been shown to alter the way that the brain functions and the patterns of brain waves that are produced. So studies are indicating that looking at fractals increases alpha brain waves, which are associated with restful and meditative states, as well as blood flow to the parahippocampus and other areas of the brain that regulate emotions. So while researchers are still learning more, there is some evidence that alpha waves play an important role in well-being. So increasing this type of brain activity may help lower depression, combat anxiety, and increase creativity. So in this study, they showed that it only takes a human brain 50 milliseconds to detect fractals. So the team also measured a positive mental response in their subjects, showing that up to 60% reduction in stress and mental fatigue. In addition to what we discussed on a previous slide, this study also demonstrated that alpha waves can have this positive effect on concentration and attention span, which might account for where Kaplan and Kaplan's attention restoration theory suggests that spending time in nature and around naturally occurring fractals can have a uniquely restorative effect on us, both cognitively and mentally. So I want to talk a little bit about Shinrin Yoku. So this term was coined by the Japanese Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries in 1982. And it can be defined as making contact with and taking in the atmosphere of the forest. So we are all part of the natural world. Our rhythms are the rhythms of nature. So being indoors, not exercising or sleeping well, and staying constantly connected with technology keeps us away from our natural way of being. As we walk slowly through the forest, seeing, listening, smelling, tasting, and touching, we bring our rhythms into step with nature. So think of Shinrin Yoku being like a bridge. So by opening our senses, it bridges the gap between us and the natural world. And when we are in harmony with the natural world, we can begin to heal. So our nervous system can rest itself. Our bodies and minds can go back to what they ought to be. No longer out of kilter with nature, but once again in tune with it. We are refreshed and restored. And the art of forest bathing is connecting with nature through your senses. So this particular study, these authors looked at the health benefits from nature experiences being dependent on dose. So they suggest that up to 7% of depression cases and 9% of high blood pressure cases could be prevented if all city residents were to visit green spaces at least once a week for an average duration of 30 minutes or more. So when we put together all the mental health benefits, or at least most of them here, there's strong evidence that we know that being in nature is going to be helpful for our mental health. It's providing stress relief, reducing depression, improvement in one's mood. A number of studies compared cortisol level, which is a stress hormone, before and after spending time outdoors, ranging from exercising outdoors or gardening to forest therapy or forest bathing, walking or hiking in a forest. They all saw a decrease in cortisol concentration, suggesting that the time spent outdoors and in green space may reduce the feeling of stress. So furthermore, according to one study, the stress reduction benefits from spending time in nature were more striking for those who experience chronic stress. So improvements in general mood and alleviation of symptoms of anxiety and depression have also been seen with increased contact with nature. So walking in forests has been shown to result in a greater improvement of psychological well-being as compared to walking in an urban setting or performing daily routines, such as commuting for work or household chores. So walking in nature compared to an urban setting saw decreases in rumination and in anxiety. So in this study, what are the benefits of interacting with nature? So interacting with nature can increase self-esteem and mood, reduce anger, improve general psychological well-being with positive effects on emotions and behavior. These interactions can also have positive effects on cognitive functions such as academic performance and the ability to perform mentally challenging tasks. And then some of the physical health benefits, again, we know that it's not only mental health, it's our physical health, it's boosting our immune system with an increased expression, as we talked about before already, this anti-cancer proteins and natural killer cells, which are immune cells that kill tumor cells and or cells infected with viruses. So studies have demonstrated a reduction in blood pressure, lowered stress, improved cardiovascular and metabolic health, lowered blood sugar levels, improved concentration and memory, improved pain thresholds, and improved energy. So one study evaluated the immune effects of time spent in nature by comparing a group of participants who spent 3 days and 2 nights in a forest and to the same group of participants spending a similar period of time in a city. So after the trip to the forest, the participants showed increased NK cell activity for more than 7 days, whereas no period of increased NK cell activity was seen after time spent in the city. And this suggests that exposure to the natural environment can contribute to enhanced immune function. And additionally, multiple studies demonstrate that time spent in forest environments, again, walking, sitting, and viewing landscapes, is associated with significantly lower blood pressure as compared to time spent in a non-forest environment doing the same activities. So the effects of lowered blood pressure from nature exposure were greatest for people who already had elevated blood pressure. And then other health benefits, such as decreased prevalence and mortality from cardiovascular disease, have also been linked to nature exposure. So for this particular study, the stress markers revealed that taking a nature pill, which is really just being outside, somebody asked me that once when I said that with a nature pill, what kind of pill can I take? Reduces stress by 21% per hour for salivary cortisol, and then 28% per hour with salivary amylase. When the duration of the nature experience is between 20 and 30 minutes, the gain in benefit is most efficient. So just to give you some ideas about practicing that outside forest bathing, just being out. First of all, if you can, leave your phone behind if you feel like you're in a safe place, or at least put it in your back pocket or somewhere, so it's not out. Let me go of music. Just be with the natural environment. Leave behind your expectations. Finding a spot to sit on or do a walk. If you're going to walk, do it slow paced. I have a tendency to walk fast in my regular life, but when I'm doing forest bathing, I like to really pay attention to my heel and toe going down, right? So you're really wanting to kind of slow down and look around. You can do it with yourself, by yourself, with a partner, or you can have a guided person take you for a little forest bathing expedition. 20 plus minutes, intentional minutes, is probably a better way to go, to be out there. If you just have a few minutes, though, I wouldn't not go out just because you have a few and not 20. It can be done anywhere. We want to engage our five senses mindfully, our sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. So there are many reasons also to bring plants indoors than simply to make your home just look like a forest. So we're bringing some things inside that we can kind of replicate the outside a little bit. So number one, they help us breathe, right? So when we breathe in, we bring in oxygen in our bodies, and when we breathe out, we release carbon dioxide. So plants do the opposite. They absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So having plants indoors increases the oxygen in our homes, and that is great for us. So plants are natural air purifiers, and they're like sponges soaking up toxic chemicals in paints, fabric, and cleansing materials. So they also raise the humidity in the air and makes us calmer, happier, and fills our lives with beauty, as long as you remember to water them and keep up with their care. So just like real plants, so there's something called foliage, which is the artificial plants. They also contribute to a more cheerful disposition. But greenery has restorative and grounding effects on our mood, dispelling mental fatigue and negative emotions, whether it's real or not. So viewing pictures of nature has also been found to be very beneficial. One particular study showed improvements in executive attention in older adults. Others have shown similar benefits as being outside, although the effect sizes as being outside are greater, more relaxed, happier, and calmer. And then one particular study examined 37 articles presenting evidence on the physiological effects of viewing nature based on indoor setting experiments. So the studies were classified based on the stimulation method used. So exposures to display stimuli such as photos, 3D images, virtual reality, and videos of nature confirmed that viewing natural scenery induced a more physiological relaxing state than viewing the control. And then furthermore, exposure to real stimuli such as green plants, flowers, and wooden materials had positive effects on the prefrontal cortex and autonomic nervous activities compared with the control. So you can also bring smells of nature into your home by using essential oils with a diffuser, or cedarwood shavings, think natural potpourri for that. So one particular study out of Japan used olfactory stimulation, by hinoki cypress leaf oil, which is a cypress, a fir tree, and it's induced a significant reduction of oxyhemoglobin concentration in the right prefrontal cortex and increased parasympathetic nervous activity, which is allowing you to relax. So you can also bring nature sounds in. There are a lot of apps now that include nature sounds, ocean waves, babbling brooks, or bird sounds. So next, I want to talk with you about an amazing collaboration that has been developed between the Osher Center and Cincinnati Parks Foundation called Parks for Wellness. And Dr. G alluded to this at the beginning when he introduced us. So this program is spearheaded by Kathy Crane, a community advisor council member for the Osher Center, and now the community director of the Parks for Wellness program, and Jen Spicer, CEO of the Cincinnati Parks Foundation. The Parks for Wellness program aims to provide Cincinnatians with opportunities to harness the healing power of nature by providing innovative, evidence-based care through health and wellness education and movement and mindfulness therapies in the parks, providing opportunities for social connection and healing. So just a little bit about Cincinnati Parks. If you're not familiar, there's over 5,000 acres. Over 10% of Cincinnati's land is part of the park system. Almost 90% of residents in Cincinnati are within a 15-minute walk to a park or green space. And there are 150 parks and green spaces throughout our cities, 52 neighborhoods. And then Cincinnati Park Foundation in particular is the primary philanthropic partner to Cincinnati Parks. So on a mission to conserve, improve, and create community in Cincinnati Parks. And Cincinnati Parks are for, as we know, community, recreation, respite, relaxation, and wellness. So the Cincinnati Parks Foundation, it was really supporting healthier communities. So they're doing some things on a regular basis, so planting trees, they're removing litter, hosting hundreds of events to create stronger community connections, and supporting initiatives that connect our parks to health and wellness. And so with our collaboration, this is going to help further connect people to health and wellness. And so we're creating programming. One of the things we're doing here, and you can see that is creating participants are going to be receiving a park passport. We're providing suggestions to additional activities. They're going to have a log and a record to be able to see the changes that pre and post in terms of some of the activities that they're involved in, and supplying other recommendations to other initiatives to be able to continue to improve their health and well-being. So nature prescription programs have emerged to address the high burden of chronic disease and increasingly sedentary and screen-based lifestyles. So with that, I also want to tell you about another collaboration we're having with ParkRx America, which is created by Dr. Robert Czar, who's a physician researcher and public health pediatrician based in Ontario, and Dr. Stacy Beller-Stryer, who's a pediatrician in Maryland. And PRA is an online nature prescription program that can be used with patients or the public on their own, or with providers and patients working together to help them stay accountable to getting into the outdoors to improve their health and well-being. So within the clinical arm of our Parks for Wellness program at UC Health, we have a growing number of physicians who are writing nature prescriptions with their patients to create an individualized plan for them to help them reap the benefits of mental and physical health that the outdoor has to offer. So Stryer and her group have already found that great results on their end. One intervention in particular with nature prescriptions, it's not yet published, was in 2020 with a county in Salt Lake City. Employee Wellness offered a 3-month nature prescription program to employees, most of whom had jobs transferred to COVID-related tasks. And between 80 to 90% reported improved mood and decreased stress after participating in the program. And then Stryer and her group also found a statistically significant relationship between the frequency of prescription writing and several aspects of nature, including a greater self-perceived relationship with the natural environment, more frequent visits to green spaces, and more frequent outdoor breaks during the workday. So healthcare providers who reported a stronger connection with nature also visited green spaces significantly more often. So as a call to action, what we wanted you to do is we created a QR code for you and invite you to complete your own nature prescription that you can keep for yourself or you could send to your health provider. Within the prescription, under place, and you can see here, it says looking for a park. Let me find that there. There's looking for a park, and I'll show you that in a second. You can put your zip code in and find a park in your area. You can add your own activity, your own frequency, your own duration. And if you can't access the QR code, you could just go to parkrxamerica.com to complete your own prescription then and print it out. And then for some help and accountability, we will be reaching out to you soon about where we will take all this from here. So this is where you can go if you put in your zip code again, and it'll pull up all the parks in your area, which is an amazing resource. So some recommendations here to consider integrating nature. We talked about these already, but finding nature wherever you are. I want you to think about it. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it might be. The longer, the better with your sunscreen on, of course, but making sure that you know that you can, even on your commute, you could look out the window when you're driving and look at some trees. You can. We're all trying to fit this into our busy schedule. So remember, you don't have to climb a mountain to reap the benefits of nature. So trying to, again, finding out where you are, connecting with nature and all of your senses, just allowing yourself to get into nature, exercise in nature. We call that green exercise, bringing nature to you. Again, that's bringing it into your home, on your balcony, wherever you have the opportunity to do that. And combine nature with creativity. You can do some things outside that you would normally do inside. And maybe it's an art project or something you could do. And then we want to make sure that we're protecting nature. So we are going to now open this up for questions that you may put in the chat with our remaining minutes.
I don't know, Dr. Walker, if you can read the chat. First of all, I would like to thank all of you who submitted your and sharing with us your feelings when city sounds were played and nature sounds. And I'm not sure if I should read all of those. I assume it would be good to do that. So I'll be very quick with this. City sounds, my eyes shut open, country sounds. I found myself breathing deeply and smiling. The next one, felt immediately irritated with loud sounds. Bird songs led to calmer feeling. City sounds, tightness in my chest and furrowed brow. Nature sounds immediately softened the muscles in my face and brought me back to fond memories of being on my grandparents' farm. Noise from the city made my teeth feel on edge and stressed. Nature sound made me feel relaxed and almost pleasantly sleepy. Somebody commented, I'm an advocate for essential oils. I love this nature prescription formula. And I tested the QR code and it's working well. So if you have any issues when you get your the recording of the presentation, you'll be able to do that. Dr. Walker, an exceptional presentation, and I agree. Thank you for your dedication to health and nature. I also appreciated the research evidence for many, many options in nature and with nature. Where can we find information about the collaboration with Cincinnati Parks? If you could answer that one,
Yeah.
and then we'll go to the other set of questions and comments.
Good. Yeah. So we will, you're on our email list now. And so we'll continue to send some of that information out. You can likely go to Cincinnati Parks as well, their website, and find some of the collaborations. We do have one coming up on June 1st. And so we'll be able to send that information out.
All right. So let's go here in the Q&A. Give me a second. Q&A, there are several of those. I'll scroll to the top. Oh, there were also several suggestions. City sounds, my eyes shut open, country sounds, find myself breathing deeply. City sounds remind me on NYC, hectic bird sounds of nature remind me on my backyard. Yeah, backyard, grandparents' farms, really evoking memories. And there is a very good question, and I also actually wanted to ask you this about sleep. It would be time to stop the change of time twice a year. This change is like a jet lag. Why continue if it affects its sleep? And that's really puzzling that we have tremendous power of science that unequivocally demonstrates the disruption that we experience. And so why, continue it? So what are your thoughts?
Well, I asked the same question. Why should we do that? I think that we know by evidence this last time change that there are more accidents on Monday morning than most days of the year because of that time change. So, yeah, I wish I had the power to really change that. I don't. Yeah.
So the next one is when to stop feeding birds in the bird feeder.
Oh, Susanna Waterhouse. Hello. She's my old neighbor. She's not old. She's just my former neighbor. um, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has an answer to that. I'm not sure. Mladen, do you know? It's a good question.
I don't know.
Probably after my guess, and this is a very non-scientific answer because I'm just saying this out loud, or just I'm thinking probably after the spring, right? I mean, when they're able to get their own seeds and nuts or whatever they get. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if they are treated like wild, fauna, then you really don't want to interfere too much. You want to help them to survive, and
Right.
because we, diminish their environment, so we need to help them in some way. I do not know. I would say that this is kind of common sense.
Yeah.
Then Kathy Crane, whom you mentioned, asked, do the doctors at UCMC prescribe nature?
That's a great question, Kathy Crane. We are working on them prescribing nature. I think there are little pockets, very, very small pockets that are prescribing nature, but that is what our whole Parks for Wellness program is all about, is the community portion with the Cincinnati Parks Foundation. And that's what we're working on internally is getting the physicians, number one, getting them out more in parks and nature, because I know a lot of them are not even able to take care of themselves sometimes, but being able to do the same for patients.
And the next question is, forest bathing, is it something that is a place of study and teaching, possibly a next chapter for some?
So I'm sorry, and I'm not seeing the question. Is that for is it something that somebody could do outside? Is that what they mean to study?
Yeah, to study and to teach, and it's part of your course. Yeah, you take the students out.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's and I think more and more people, I don't know, Sharon, if you're at UC or anything, but it's interesting. There are more and more green spaces that are being created, and there are more professors going into those spaces with their students. Some of my students are doing the same with some of my direction during the semester, but being able to go outside and reading and doing whatever they need to do. It's helpful to them, obviously.
Well, Kathy provided answers about the birds feeding. Feed them now as the spring came early and the cold has returned. They are beginning to nest. Very important to feed. Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. We now
So
know that.
it takes a village. It takes a village. Yeah.
Thank you for your insightful tips to promote self-care with nature. Yes, and in fact, by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, nature is considered the 7th unofficial pillar of self-care. Hopefully it will become official, and Barbara is doing really amazing job on putting it on a radar screen. Are there any studies on the health effects of wading in streams, creeks, etc.? Just curious.
Yeah, so you can look at some of the information on blue zones. So what we're talking about is more green space and green zones, minus the negative ion stuff that I talked about. But if you look at blue zones, you'll look at all the study on water. And the other thing that might be interesting to look at is like cold plunging. That's what I was trying to think of, the cold plunging and just being in creeks, and especially if it's colder. But you can look at some of that information. But there's a lot of studies coming out on both of those.
I think we are at 8 o'clock, but the last one, is nature exposure more beneficial when it emulates more nostalgic memories, or if the exposure is in more novel natural environments, something like remembered wellness versus experiencing novel environments?
I think it depends. I think both of them could be equally as great. So we know that being in a new environment is going to spark the new this curiosity, right? And create maybe perhaps even more neuroplasticity because you're getting this new into this new environment. But the nostalgia piece is really important too. It's interesting. Like even Janie just said that she even heard that sound and thought about a grandparent's farm, and that's lovely, right? So that's a human connection, that's a social connection that she had, and an emotional memory. So I think both of them are equally as important.
I think we'll have to
Right.
pause here. So
Yeah.
thank you very much again, Dr. Walker. Thank you all for joining us for tonight's night. Really amazing, informative presentation. Thank you for all your questions and kind words. And please follow the instructions on the screen. Get connected through our newsletter with all the updates, very common new things, all pertaining to self-care. So thank you very much all. Thank you very much, Dr. Walker. Good
Yeah,
night.
thank you.
And don't forget, it's a clear sky tonight. There is a huge winter display of the most brightest constellations. So go out and be in the nature and look at the stars. Good
There you
night.
go. Thank you so much. Namaste.